Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a moment, your government just hands you a chunk of money to spend.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, sounds good already, right? But then, just to sweeten the deal, they offer you a bonus if you manage to spend it all quickly. It's kind of like a game, but with real financial rewards.
Right.
Well, that's basically the approach South Korea took with its mince and go book consumption coupons, or well, these aren't just, handouts.
No, not at all.
They're part of this really fascinating nationwide effort to inject life back into the economy and, crucially, support small businesses. And the story of how this is all unfolding has some really interesting layers.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how carefully designed the policy seems to be, but also how its real-world implementation is showing, well, both huge successes and some unexpected challenges. So our mission today, really, is to dive deep into that policy design, look at how it's actually being used on the ground, try and analyze the economic impact, and maybe uncover some of the surprising controversies that popped up.
Yeah. And to give you the full picture, we've pulled from, a whole stack of sources, news reports, financial analyses, even government FAQs. So, yeah, let's get started and see what we can learn.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the basics first. These Minsenhabak consumption coupons. What exactly are they? Can you break down the fundamental idea?
Certainly. They're essentially government-issued funds, yeah, distributed directly to citizens. And the goal was pretty clear, really two main things. First, stimulate consumer spending, get people buying things again.
Right.
And second, help the economy recover, especially at that local small business level. Think of it like a very targeted economic boost,
Okay.
designed to get money flowing right into specific parts of the economy,
Right.
particularly those neighborhood businesses that often need it most.
That makes sense. So how did they actually get the money out there? You mentioned phases.
Yeah, the distribution, or G-up as they call it, happened in two main phases. The first phase involved variable amounts. It could be anything from 150,000 up to 450,000 Korean won.
And how is that amount decided?
It depended on a couple of things. Your income bracket, obviously, but also where you lived. So if you were outside the capital region, you got an extra 30,000 KRW.
Oh, interesting.
And if you happened to live in one of these designated rural population decreasing areas, you got another 50,000 KRW on top. So, someone receiving basic living support in one of those specific rural spots could get that maximum 450,000 KRW in the first go.
Okay, and then there was a second phase on top of that.
Exactly. The second phase was simpler, a flat 100,000 KRW for most people.
Mm.
But they did exclude the top 10% of income earners from this second bit.
Right.
So yeah, if you were that person we mentioned, the basic living recipient in a rural area, the total potential you could get across both phases was 550,000 KRW. It's pretty substantial.
Definitely. Now, timing is always key with these things. What were the application windows? And crucially, the deadlines for actually using the funds. That use it or lose this aspect always creates a bit of urgency, doesn't it?
It really does. So for phase one, applications ran from July 21st to September 12th, 2025. Phase two followed pretty closely, September 22nd to October 31st. But here's the kicker. Didn't matter when you got your coupons, all of it had to be spent by midnight on November 30th, 2025.
Wow.
Any leftover balance, just gone, expired.
This raises an important question then. Who exactly was eligible? Just citizens? Or were others included?
Basically, it was all South Korean citizens living in the country as of June 18th, 2025. That was the cutoff date.
Okay.
If you had minors, the head of the household could apply for them. Now, while it was mainly for citizens, they did mention that some foreign residents might be eligible, like permanent residents, marriage immigrants, refugees.
Yeah.
For them, it really needed individual confirmation based on their specific visa and registration status. It wasn't automatic.
Gotcha. So once someone knew they were eligible, how easy was it to actually apply? What were the options?
They tried to make it, pretty flexible. You had online options using card company apps, websites, local currency apps, that sort of thing. Or, if you preferred, you could go offline, bank branches, local community centers. They even had this weekday system for the first week based on your birth year's last digit, just to manage the initial rush.
What's smart?
And, quite thoughtfully, there was a visiting application service for elderly or disabled folks who couldn't easily get out.
That's good.
One key thing, though, and this tripped some people up, once you picked your payment method, say a specific credit card, you couldn't change it later, that choice was logged in.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. They added this bonus element. How did that extra incentive work? What was the thinking there?
Yeah, that was quite a clever move, really designed to speed up spending. The mechanics were simple. If you spent your entire initial Mincing Hoba coupon amount by August 31st, 2025,
Okay.
you were automatically entered into a lottery. You didn't have to do anything
You
else.
expect your application.
Nope. And if you won, you could get an extra coupon up to 50,000 KRW.
Yeah.
You really tapped into that, that chance of getting a little extra windfall.
Mm.
Creates a buzz.
Definitely. A lottery is always appealing. What was the scale of this bonus? Was it just a small thing?
Oh, no, it wasn't small scale at all. It was a joint effort by 5 major credit card companies. Names like Shinhan, Hyundai were involved.
All right.
And they put up a pretty hefty budget, 2.5 billion KRW, just for these bonuses. The prizes were tiered, too, so lots of people had a chance to win something.
Like how many?
Let's see. 10,000 people got the top prize of 50,000 KRW. Then 100,000 people got 10,000 KRW. And another 200,000 people got 5,000 KRW.
Wow. That's
Adds up to 310,000 winners in total.
a lot of winners.
It is. And interestingly, this whole bonus thing was marketed quite quietly. No huge ad campaigns. Apparently, the government asked the card companies to kind of keep it low-key, avoid turning it into excessive marketing competition.
Focus on the core benefit, not just the bonus hype. Makes sense. And from what we saw, people really responded well to it. It seemed effective in getting folks to spend quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It definitely added that extra nudge.
Okay, so let's shift to what happened on the ground. How quickly do people actually apply for these things?
Well, that was one of the most striking things, actually, the speed. Within just the first week, an incredible 78.4% of eligible people had applied.
78%.
In 1 week.
Yeah, that's around 39.67 million people by July 31st.
Wow. Does that speed suggest maybe more public trust now compared to earlier efforts? Or just people really needing the money? Or maybe the process was just smoother?
That's a great question. I think it's likely a mix of factors. This rate was much faster than previous relief during the pandemic back in 2020. It was about 54% in 2021, around 68%.
Okay.
By the end of July this time, the overall rate hit 90%. So I think, yes, maybe lessons were learned in making the application process easier, and perhaps also a greater public awareness or readiness to engage with stimulus after going through the pandemic. People understood the benefit faster, maybe. We did see some regional differences, though. Incheon was around 77%, Sejong 76%, but Jeonnam was lower at 66%. Still, overall, very rapid uptake. Now, the usage rules were pretty strict, weren't they? And that seems really key to the policy's actual goal. You couldn't just spend it anywhere.
No, exactly right. They were primarily meant for small businesses, specifically those with annual sales under 3 billion KRW.
Okay.
So that automatically excluded the big supermarkets, department stores, even the directly owned branches of major coffee chains or fast food places.
Yeah, the big players.
Yeah. The restriction was really designed to funnel that money directly into local neighborhood economies, make sure it went straight to the smaller businesses that might struggle otherwise.
And was that focus working? Where do we see the biggest impact? Any surprising success stories?
Oh, yeah, it seems to have worked quite well in that respect. Local small businesses, neighborhood clothing shops, traditional markets, they definitely reported the highest usage and saw revenues jump.
Like how much?
Some fashion retailers, for example, saw sales leap by over 60%. And anecdotally, you heard lots of stories about traditional markets and downtown areas just buzzing. Some shopkeepers were reporting sales up by like 30%.
That's significant for them.
Absolutely. And interesting, even convenience stores got a boost. GS25 saw soup and stew sales triple. CU's water sales were up 45%. 7-Eleven saw side dish sales jump 80%.
Huh, convenience stores too.
Yeah, maybe people treating themselves to small things or stocking up. Even some chicken and burger franchises saw slight increases, probably because many operate as independent franchisees, not direct corporate stores, so they fit the criteria.
Right.
And here's a slightly quirky detail. Some leased stores inside big supermarkets like E-Mart, apparently about 960 of those internal shops were eligible. They could accept the coupons. So that offered a kind of unexpected convenience for shoppers already there.
That is an interesting wrinkle. So beyond these anecdotes, what about the bigger economic picture? How did this compare to past relief efforts in terms of overall impact?
Right. If we look at the analysis, especially compared to the 2020 COVID relief funds, that was about 14.2 trillion KRW distributed.
Okay.
Almost all the card-based money got used, like 99.5%.
Yeah.
But here's the crucial difference. Back in 2020, a pretty big chunk, maybe 36.5%, was spent at large merchants.
Ah, so less targeted.
Exactly. These new coupons, because they had that strict small business limit, were expected to have an even stronger effect on local economies. The KDI, the Korea Development Institute, looked back at 2020 and found those funds led to about a 26% to 36% sales increase relative to the budget size,
Okay.
which translates to roughly 4 trillion KRW in direct extra spending from that 14 trillion KRW budget. And it did have a positive macro effect. In the second quarter of 2020, private consumption actually went up 1.5%, even though the overall economy, the real GDP, dropped by over 3%.
So it cushioned the blow significantly.
It seems so. And the thinking is because the situation now is different post-COVID, fewer restrictions on going out, on services, the consumption boost this time could potentially be even greater.
Makes sense.
Although, just for balance, it's worth mentioning. Some data from the Korean Central Bank has suggested that maybe direct government spending, like on infrastructure or something, might have a higher overall fiscal multiplier than these kinds of universal payments. So there's always that debate about long-term efficiency versus immediate stimulus.
Right, the classic economic debate.
Yeah.
Okay, but like any big government initiative, it wasn't all perfect, right? There were bound to be some bumps. What challenges did they run into?
Oh, absolutely. No rollout this large is ever completely smooth. Inevitably, you get reports of improper use, people trying to bend or break the rules.
Like how?
Well, for instance, some businesses that were actually too big over that 3 billion KRW sales limit reportedly tried to get around it, maybe using the card terminal of a smaller neighboring business or one of those eligible leased stores inside a big mart.
Trying to find loopholes. Were individuals trying things too?
Yeah, there were cases of customers doing things like demanding cash refunds after buying something, maybe falsely claiming there was an issue with the food or product, or even trying to sell the prepaid card versions at a discount online on places like Dangjin Market.
Trying to cash them out.
Exactly. And it's important to stress that's illegal. Using someone else's terminal could violate financial laws, and trying to cash out the coupons violates rules around subsidies. It could lead to having to pay the money back, penalties, even being blocked from future support.
Serious stuff. So how did the government react to this?
Well, they took it seriously. The Ministry of Interior and Safety asked local governments to set up specific illegal distribution reporting centers.
Okay.
They started monitoring online communities more closely. The National Police Agency even planned a special crackdown period running right up until the spending deadline. They also tightened up the registration criteria for businesses and started removing non-compliant ones.
So clamping down pretty hard. Were there other issues besides fraud? Like just genuine confusion?
Yes, absolutely. There was definitely some confusion around usage location ambiguity. For example, we heard about some restaurants that also sell alcohol, finding themselves unexpectedly excluded, even if food was their main business.
That seems tricky.
It is. The good news is the government seemed aware of these gray areas and was accepting appeals from businesses who felt they were wrongly left out. It's tough drawing perfect lines for every single type of business out there.
Yeah, can imagine. Now, one of the more visible controversies seemed to be around the actual design of some of the prepaid cards. What happened there?
Ah, yes. That was a bit of an unforced error, you could say.
Yeah.
Some local governments, Gwangju, Busan, Ulsan were mentioned, issued prepaid cards that had different colors or even had the amount visibly printed on them.
Why would they do that?
It seems it was related to distinguishing different income brackets or support categories. But the result was it inadvertently revealed sensitive information about the recipient's income level or perhaps their status as being in a vulnerable group. Gwangju, for example, used different card colors for different income levels.
Oof.
That doesn't sound good.
No. And the reaction was strong. President Lee Jae-myung himself condemned it quite forcefully, calling it typical supplier-centric administrative expediency and extremely lacking in human rights sensitivity. He demanded it be fixed immediately.
Wow, that's strong language from the top. How does a mistake like that impact how people feel about the whole program, even if the intention was good?
It's definitely damaging. Even if fixed quickly, things like that can erode trust, particularly among the very groups the program aims to help. It just underscores how critical it is to think about the human impact, the user experience, in policy design, not just the logistics.
So how do they fix it?
The ministry stepped in and ordered stickers to be placed over that information on the existing cards.
Right.
And they made sure future card designs wouldn't have that problem.
Okay, damage control. And finally, a really practical issue. What about people losing their prepaid cards?
Yeah, that was another headache. Because these cards were essentially like cash-bearer bonds, no owner info, no PN needed.
If you lost it, it was basically untraceable. And initially, they couldn't reissue them. This is a particular worry for people maybe less comfortable with smartphones or digital banking who might rely more on the physical card.
So if you lost it, the money was just gone.
Pretty much, initially. The immediate advice, at least in some areas like Busan, Daegu, Ulsan, Gyeongnam, was for people to go to a bank right away when they got the card and register their name and the card's serial number. That offered some protection.
Okay.
But longer term, the government told local authorities to work with banks to figure out a proper system for reissuing lost cards. It's one of those real-world details you have to adapt to.
It really shows how even carefully planned policies hit these unexpected snags when they meet reality. It's a constant learning process, I guess.
Absolutely.
So we've really covered a lot of ground today. We started with the basics of South Korea's mincing hobok consumption coupons, looked at those clever bonus incentives.
Yeah, the lottery aspect.
Yeah. Then we explored the impact, which seems pretty significant, especially for local businesses, despite maybe some broader economic questions.
Right. The targeted effect seems strong.
And finally, we looked at those challenges and controversies, the fraud attempts, the confusion, the card design issue, lost cards.
It's clear that, despite those bumps, the main goal of boosting local economies and helping consumers seems to be, well, generally moving forward. It shows that dynamic between a policy idea and what actually happens.
So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you listening? As we see these big stimulus programs roll out, it really brings up a fascinating question, doesn't it? How do we as a society get the balance right? That immediate economic shot in the arm versus the bigger, longer-term goals of stability and, importantly, social equity.
Yeah, and maybe think about how these lessons from South Korea could apply elsewhere. What do you think about the best ways to stimulate an economy? It's a debate that's definitely ongoing.
Absolutely. Well, that's all for this deep dive. We hope it's given you some valuable insights and maybe encourages you to do your own deep dives into the world around you.